First name's Tank, middle name is Colossus. Try and step to me and I'ma show you who the boss is. You best be cautious, you'll suffer losses and start back from scratch trying to figure out the causes. Hold your applauses till the ending of the show. So here we go, trying to smash the status quo. Swing to and fro, go blow for blow. Shout out to the boys, trying to unlearn what I know. No familiar flow here, not one to be found. Ear to the ground, trying to find the right sound. When Tank's around, you're going down. You'll be really, really lucky to get out the first round. Close your eyes, what did you find? It's been there the whole time. Peace of mind, still unrefined. The subconscious mind, still to go blind. Third eye rise, all aligned, body and mind. Devastated, in the state I'm in, I should have been elated. You switched and baited, this bond now desecrated. So vacant, vacated, this couldn't be more understated. Awaited the fated, lay in the bed we created. Soul sedated, pupils dilated. Don't wait for me, love, I am the long awaited. Unabated, reincarnated, king of the underrated. Undisputed, it's never been refuted. Teachers surpassed by the students. It's never been more prudent to uproot the strong-rooted, dilute the undiluted, dispute the undisputed. King of pain, I sit atop my throne where I'm reign, trying to figure out this pain. Close your eyes, what did you find? It's been there the whole time. Peace of mind, still unrefined. The subconscious mind, still to go blind. Third eye rise, all aligned, body and
Ladies and gentlemen, Tank Diggs is with us tonight, and my camera hasn't. What the hell? Hold on a second. Now we're having a video issue. Where is it? There it is. Okay. We're fine. Never mind. We're good. No more issues tonight. We should be good.
Sweet.
Alright. So, Tank, how have you been?
Good. Yourself?
I've been alright, thanks. I got a little bit stressed out, I must admit, after the last interview. I was worried that we were going to have more, and then we started to have more issues. But we're good.
Good, good, good. That's always how it goes.
I mean, it went a little bit rough the first night with Nick, but I mean, I think that the first night I did my podcast, it was a little smooth. Second time I did it with Mikey, It was pretty smooth. Of course, we're gonna hit a rough patch eventually, right? So here it is. Hopefully, no more rough patches. Hopefully, we're good from here on out.
Awesome.
So, let's talk first. I want to talk a little bit about your newest work with Cabal. I want to talk about the Midnight Mass EP.
Yeah.
So you guys had to work on that in quarantine, right? You guys had to do that separately?
So some of it was actually done a little while ago. One song in particular, I Spit, was produced by Nonek, Paul Operman. That was done, man, I don't even know how long ago it was done now. That might be like even a year or two ago.
Okay.
And yeah, some stuff was written outside of quarantine, but like the majority of it was done either just before or like during quarantine, for sure.
I feel like it must have been like a more difficult process than working on an album, you know, just with somebody, like if they could, come over or whatever. Social distancing has kept us all apart from that.
Well, that is the good part about working on the hip hop side of things. It actually is relatively easy
Mm.
to just send files back and forth. And he basically took the lead about like halfway through. There's some songs that it definitely took the lead on, but he definitely how do you say, put that softball down the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
So like I basically just had to record my portions. And truthfully, like I talked about this a couple times online. It was a really weird experience for me because I have written like quite a bit over like the entirety of my life. But this was the entire time where I would like write something, record it right away off paper, not committed to memory, never perform it live, just kind of push it to the side right away because I'm working on my solo project at the same time. So the first night where it came out, and I sat back and I smoked a little joint, well, bong, you know me, I smoked bong.
Yeah.
And I listened to it, it was like, it almost sounds like stupid to say that it doesn't sound like it was me, but like, it feels like the analogy I use is like back in the day when you found the mixtape
Mm.
and you just grabbed it and you popped it in and you didn't really know the band or who these guys were. You're
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is like really fucking cool shit. Like I experienced that listening to stuff that I had written, like myself, like I not that long ago. So like that was kind of like the oddest part of it, but everything basically came together very easily.
I like
A
when you
lot of
can
the
get that
ideas.
kind of stuff though from your own work, when you can sort of look at it and say, who was that? I mean, I know that that sounds familiar, but I feel like that kind of resonation with a product that you've manifested sort of can hit you in a different way. It can manipulate a feeling or strengthen a passion in that way.
Well, I can definitely get into that. You want to jump right into songwriting because we can.
I'll get there.
Okay.
Um, so we were going to talk about your magnum opus, sort of your masterwork, what you thought your best sort of product that you've manifested so far is. What?
To date, I would say for sure it's Heroic Doses 2, and yeah, with the again like with the caveat that my newest work, One Trick Pony, is like shaping up to be like really good.
Yeah. Uh,
And I guess every musician says that about their newest stuff. And I
yeah.
don't know if that's like everybody falls in love with their new stuff and that's what it's all about, but I really feel like there's been a big jump in production and a big jump in direction. And yeah, I'm very excited to unleash it on the world. But that's not Heroic Doses 2. Heroic Doses 2 is a completely different project.
Yeah.
So yeah, here I'll tell you a little bit about like Heroic Doses 2. Essentially, I was in bands the entirety of like my high school career, grade 10 and up, and yeah, that's Signs of Life right there. Those were my boys. That was like my favorite band that was ever in. Like I love those guys to death. I loved working on that album. That kid on the cover is now a policeman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what station he's at right now, but that's my guitarist nephew.
Mm.
And yeah, he's all grown up, and he's patrolling the streets. So yeah, I love music, obviously, like forever and a day. And it was always on the rock and on the metal side of things for the most part.
Yeah.
I guess my generation is the new metal generation. We were Deftones and I don't want to say Limp Bizkit, but Limp Bizkit and Korn and all of those types of bands. And I love it. I wear it on my sleeve. I still love Deftones to this day. It's still my favorite band. So long story short, band broke up, and I was kind of like had no direction. And my pops was working for the school board, and he's like, "Why don't you let me get you in as a caretaker? Can work in the evening, blah blah blah." And I never wanted to do it in the past because I was always so involved in music that I didn't want to be gone for the evenings because that's what practices would happen
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But at that time, like I said, we had broken up, and I was kind of like in a bit of a spiral, and was just like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna do the responsible thing, and I'm gonna get a 9 to 5 job, and everything's gonna be great. And that's like so not what happened. And then
I don't think it's
you know,
it ever turns out as we expect it when that kind of stuff happens.
for sure. So yeah, that job separated a lot of me from my personal life. I lived alone. It separated me from my friends. It separated me from working with other people, and I did fall into a depression. And it almost sounds cliche in this day and age to talk about all of this kind of stuff because like everybody has like some kind of story to tell in that regard. But yeah, it got like pretty bad for me as well. And connecting to music was a really big first step in getting back to where I wanted to be and like some kind of semblance of who I was before when everything felt to I can swear right around the internet where everything felt to shit.
Yeah.
So like it gave me direction, it gave me hope again. Like I would come home on a Friday night, have my weed, spark something up, smoke, and just start writing music. And I loved working on Heroic Doses 2 so much because it was the first time I worked completely by myself. I'm not a trained musician by any stretch of the imagination outside of singing lessons. I've never played guitar. Now I play around a little bit of bass. Never played piano. Nothing. Never that kind of stuff. And I didn't never want to take on beat making for that purpose.
Right.
Like I've always just had beats made for me, and I just sang on top of them. So in order to reconnect back to music, I had to figure that portion of it out. And kind of to my surprise, it went like really well, or better than I thought it was going to. And I'm like, oh my god, this is like working. I can't believe this. There's a song here in front of me for me to sing on. I write song, write another song, write another song, and like I said, like it just started to give me a sense of accomplishment. It started to do so much for me. It started to put me in the proper direction. I still had a lot of work to do to heal myself, and I guess everybody does, and I still do to this day. But the road goes to two definitely resonates with me with that portion of my life, the beginning of the healing.
Yeah. And I feel like the best thing anybody can do for anybody in your life or even yourself is, to work on yourself, whether it's for depression or going through anxiety or anything like that, just overcoming those kind of obstacles. And I feel like if music, I feel, is kind of like, well, I see a lot of things are mixed up these days. People look at like different things as different things. It's hard to explain that, but like, I mean, I feel like when Leonardo da Vinci was sort of inventing his machines, he would not only use like, mathematical skill in measurement and stuff like that, but he would also use his artistic skill in drawing out like a diagram of how it would work and, explaining it in English or his writing or whatever. Thank you for the follow, Pizza Dan. But, it makes it so that everything sort of combines into one thing. And I think at one point in time in our culture, we all had it melded down. All of it was sort of one thing. Religion was science, and science was math, and math was art, and art was everything. And, music and, how we created things and how we designed our homes and whatever you wanted to call it at the time. But it all boils down to like in this day and age, it's all a separate entity. Like art is art for art's sake, and music is music for music's sake. Science is science for the sake of, knowledge and science, or whatever. But it's all sort of spread out now.
I hear you.
So going into heroic doses, why did you decide to call it that?
So yeah, at the time, as I was saying, I was working as a evening caretaker, and I started to listen to a lot of the Joe Rogan Experience, and started listening to a lot of the podcasts
Yeah.
dealing with Timothy Leary and psychedelic drug use and acid and mushrooms in particular, and mushrooms always was kind of a subject that kind of caught my attention for many reasons. And yeah, so the name Heroic Doses 2, Heroic Doses 1 was an album. It did die on a hard drive that I wasn't even never able to fix.
Yeah.
So there is no physical Heroic Doses 1 anywhere. So like the series starts at 2, RIP to 1.
Rest in peace.
But, yeah, so Timothy Leary believed that it would take heroic doses of psilocybin drugs, mushrooms specifically, is what I assume or think was his go-to outside of the acid. It's essentially the same drug. Acid is a man-made version of the drug that's in mushrooms.
Right.
And he would take what he would call heroic doses, and he believed that the way to truly heal yourself is through like massive doses of mushrooms. Like I think like 14 grams, 15 grams is like starting point. I do 1 gram and my soul is trying to like escape my body. You know what I mean? I'm trying to like pain myself, and this guy's like 14 grams in.
Right.
Like, wow. But heroic doses is an analogy because this album was so much of me. It was like a heroic dose of me, of Tank, into the music, into the lyrics, into the subject matter, into the every portion of it. Outside of the production, which was Greg Dawson from BWC Studios.
BWC Studios. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's the best.
Do you have you ever taken mushrooms?
Yeah, a handful of times. I have been a very experimental type of person when it comes to the drug front.
I can't say that I've partaken because I mean I have, but I was completely under the impression that it was what it was, and I was around people who I trusted, and they said they had a trip, but I consumed them differently because I don't like the texture, and so I sort of hid them in food. And
that's what I do.
They
I don't
didn't
think anybody likes the texture.
They didn't hit me. They didn't hit me at all. I didn't have any kind of psychedelic experience or any kind of trip whatsoever, and I've done them at least twice.
Wow.
Can't say I felt anything.
Yeah, I've done it a handful of times. One of the best times was at New Year's. I did have a weird experience where I fell asleep on them, and I thought bats were carrying me away.
Bats?
That was definitely like the worst experience on mushrooms. I woke up in the back of a Jetta like, what the hell's going on? But it always felt amazing to me. And somebody actually asked me once like what it felt like, and that's the only way like I was able to describe it. It's like it feels like my soul is trying to escape my body, and I'm doing everything in my power to keep it in. Like I still to this day don't even know how to explain it.
I feel like the fact that you remember your trip has something to say about like the effects of it on the human body, because I mean, mushrooms have apparently had their form for longer than humans have had a form. Mushrooms as a entity, like evolving from bacteria, have had a physical embodiment for something like 1.6 billion years or even earlier. But humans have only had our form for like 100 million or something like that. And actually, the largest living organism on Earth is a honey fungus measuring 2.4 miles across the Blue Mountains in Oregon. And it grows all under the ground. And it's
Crazy, right?
I don't know how old it is actually. I can find that out. But is that gonna? Yeah, that's gonna mess it up on me, isn't it? No, we're all right. Does it say how old it is? No, it doesn't. Oh wait, somewhere between 1900 and 8,650 years old. So that's pretty old, and it's still
Definitely.
alive. And it's, I mean, a fungus. Apparently, we all evolved from a fungus before we evolved. Like, even animals came from a fungus before they turned into animals. And that's
I've
how
heard the same.
amoebas, eventually became a fungus once they turned on the land or whatever, and then we all evolved from that, right? That's what it is or whatever. I don't know the exact theory of it. I haven't followed.
That's my understanding as well. It'd be like super layman's terms, but it's essentially like fungi to animal, and then if you're a believer in the evolutionary theory, animal to human, and then as we discussed off air, the big jump
Well,
in human development.
I think that people when they think of evolution, they think of like the Darwin theory of evolution, the chart of like early hominids evolving into man, like, some of them looking like Bigfoot almost and stuff like that. But I don't think that's exactly the case with what it was, because I think there were groups of different hominid species, like as they
Neanderthal and stuff.
yeah, because that's how they put it. And there are different groups of hominid species, just like there are different groups of apes, like orangutans and chimpanzees, and different, they grouped them
Yeah.
differently, but they didn't actually usually commingle, but some of them apparently did, and that's apparently how some of us got here. But that's a story for another day. Whatever.
Well, again, it ties back into the fungi use and the mushroom use, right? The stone date theory, where it's one of the theories, and the belief in how the human brain basically doubled in size in an extremely short period of time. Was it these primates that were foraging for food and came across different types of mushrooms and had psychotropic experiences that developed neural pathways that you were discussing earlier that helped them evolve? The other theories where it was fire and the cooking of food. Other theories have to deal with like hunting and organizing,
Yeah.
essentially to hunt down, like I said, hunt down animals, and that was the big reason why. I think the one we hear the most is the fire theory. Like that's the one I've always heard, was that when we had the ability, or when monkeys or primates had the ability to use fire with cooking, that the nutrients, which we know to this day, there's more nutrients in cooked food than normal, except for vegetable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the explanation for the large jump. But there is the stone date theory that states that it is psychotropics
Yeah.
and psilocybin in particular.
Well, I
But I
mean,
think that is theory, yeah?
yeah. I'm not exactly sure who said that on the. You were talking about the video that I sent you earlier from the Joe Rogan one.
Yeah. No, was it turned? I think it was McKenna then.
They were
It was
mentioning McKenna.
McKenna.
Yeah.
And then his brother Dennis
His
is
brother
the
Dennis was the scientist. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
But yeah, no, it was their theory. I think that they put forward or whatever, and it might have been somebody else's. But I know that they're very involved in this. But yeah, I found it very interesting. I mean, if you really think about it, it says it's most commonly the psychoactive mushrooms grow from the animal dung that's most commonly found in the plain lands of Africa, which is where the early hominid species that we expect to be evolved from would have been coming out of the treetops as hunter-gatherers to look for food. And I mean, it just makes it just brings logic to the table. I mean, if you're hunting with your troop, and you come across these mushrooms, and you're very hungry, and it's from some animal dung, and they've just previously, left the area because they've been eating the grass all day or something like that. Then you've got these fresh mushrooms. I mean, obviously the dung's pretty old if you've got mushrooms growing out of it, but let's be fair, you're looking for something to eat, and there's these mushrooms. You take a bite, you're tripping. That's what's going to happen.
Exactly. And you did more gathering than hunting back then.
And they talk about it, it didn't just happen one time. And like you say, they gathered it, and then they brought it back to the group where all their, the rest of their troop would take part in it. And then it happened millions and millions of times over millions and millions of years. The progression didn't happen overnight like that. But I say that, it's possible if I just saw a video earlier today of a jaguar that was eating these psychoactive berries or something like that in the jungle, and it's lying on its back tripping out at something. It doesn't, it's not really there, but it sees something. You see it tripping out, and it's looking in the sky, and it just starts going not like having a seizure or anything. I mean, I might have looked like I was having a seizure there, but whatever. It's just reacting to the psychoactive, I think it was berries that it was eating. And it's having a good time. But I think any animal consuming that in that way over so many hundreds of years, or thousands of years, or millions of years, if it did it to apes, it could do it to anything, really. I mean, we could have cat people, thundercats walking around in 100 million years if they keep feeding those psychoactive berries to those cats. I don't know. We'll have to see.
No, that's true. The stone ape theory, I think, has been disproven, essentially. But it is fun to talk. I do like the idea of religion tied into mushrooms more so than even the evolutionary traits. To me, that's a lot more plausible. Same essential theory, that just a different time period and a different, group of people where they're going out and they're still foraging, they're still hunting. You know what I mean? But how do you explain that experience? How do you explain that psychotropic experience when you go back to your tribe? You're like, hey guys, guess what? I think I saw God. That completely, like you said, brings logic to the table for me. That all of a sudden now we're talking, I'm like, okay, this makes sense to me. And then the acacia bush, which is pretty widespread through the Middle East, is going to have DMT properties, which leads to Moses in the burning bush. It's possible that bush was on fire. It's possible he saw God. It's also possible he was really high on DMT.
Yeah. Or ayahuasca.
Again, that makes more sense to me. And again, even the stuff that he's talking about, it's be nice to each other, help each other out, don't fucking kill each other. I can't even believe that's something that he said. And he's like, these are all these awesome laws, but that's every stoner from day one. It's yeah, right. We shouldn't fucking hurt each other.
Right.
Even just little pot will give you those experiences.
Exactly.
But yeah, I do like the tie into mushroom use and religion, and I actually have used this discussion with Jehovah's Witnesses to get them off my back. They were not happy with me by the time I was done with them.
Yeah, I used to sort of be like, oh, you want to come to my door and knock? Let's have a conversation, shall we?
Are you sure you want this?
Yeah. But it always interested me how psychedelics and religion sort of merge. And I mean, when you say, I mean, I haven't personally tried DMT myself, but I've heard a couple people. I don't know anybody personally that's done it, that I know of anyway, that I've asked. But
I know of people who've done it. I haven't tried it, and I've heard. Yeah, I want to try it.
I've heard stories, and what I hear back is, I saw God, and I have to ask after that. I say, what do you define as God? And they say, well, I don't mean a man with a white beard. and I mean, I'm not saying that I say this, but my question is, but I get a response usually through watching the rest of the video that I'm watching or whatever that I'm, getting the information through or whatever. But I ask myself the question, what do you mean by God? And usually I have received in the form of a video a response of, well, not a man with a white beard, but I mean a cosmic entity that revealed itself to me as my own consciousness, but also as everything else in existence that was constantly existing and not existing at the same time. And that to me meant that identifying as anything, I can't identify myself as a person because I'm not the person that I claim that I am. I'm just the consciousness that's inside the person. But at the same time as being the consciousness, I'm also everything that's around me. And I feel that is a heavy feeling in understanding any religion, is that you have to understand that, God is all around you all the time. And it's that sense of feeling him with you that makes you, I mean, whatever religion you tend to be in, I'm obviously using sort of Christianity as a sort of mirror here. But I have a friend who would say, I feel that God is with me when I pray or when I ask him a question. And I can say that to myself too. I've felt God with me too, but I don't think it's the God that he feels. I think it's a different God. I feel that it's a God that exists inside myself rather than a God that can talk back to me and tell me what I exist for and, why he put me here.
I got a little something to add to that. Prayer is a form of meditation.
Yeah.
Focusing on the one aspect, either the words it is that you're saying or whatever thought it is you want to put into the universe or give to your God or whatever the scenario is. So yes, and in that state of meditation, sure, you're going to have illuminations, thoughts are going to come to you that you may or may not have had before, somewhere in the back of your subconscious that you can interpret as exactly as you said, from yourself, but also from God. I believe personally that the soul is divinity.
Yeah.
Everything on this planet is made from the periodic table of elements. Absolutely everything. That cannot be argued. That is science, fact. Different variations of different versions of chemicals make up everything. So why are there sentient beings, and then why is there like brick or cement that like has absolutely like no life to it if we're essentially made of all the same stuff? So to me, the link between science and religion is just that, the soul. And the soul is what makes God in everybody. The soul is what divinity is. Coming back to stuff that you were talking to earlier, I believe we're cut off from the spiritual world. Now I'm going to get all like really conspiracy theory. So like the third eye is basically, to me, from everything I understand, is how like the soul gets into the body, how the soul leaves the body. It's essentially what was supposed to be our gateway to the spiritual world. Egyptians knew about it. They fucking drew about it. They had all that shit fucking decked out. And through use of fluoride in our water, which we know hardens the pineal gland, which is the third eye, I believe over time we have become like so far removed from the spiritual world that we find ourselves in this situation. And that's when people talk about frequencies and I'm good at music because I vibrated this frequency and this
Right.
and that. But there's still a part of you that still connects to that.
Right. I totally feel you on that for sure. Because first of all, you were talking about, you started by saying that you feel like praying is a form of meditation. I 100% agree with that. 100%. I feel like even writing music is a form of meditation. If you sit there and you sort of hum to yourself, sort of a melody to yourself, you're sort of like chanting a mantra almost. and it's helping you to sort of calm yourself. It's helping you be in the moment at the time when you're thinking about what you're thinking about, what you're creating, what you're manifesting, and you're really there. When you're sort of building, like making music, or when you're even like writing poetry or a song, like physically songwriting, like you were talking about earlier, which we'll get into in a minute. You gotta be in the moment, so you have to actively, open up yourself while you're there to get what you need to get out, And I feel like if you're when I'm not sitting still, when I'm not concentrating on, I mean, honestly, lately it's been, if I'm not educating myself, or if I'm not enthusing myself with some form of art, I feel very bored. I feel very disentertained with everything around me. I feel when I'm sitting still in the quiet, I'm whatever, I like it. It's just now. It's just existing. But if I'm in a moment where I'm walking out of my room and I'm going to a different room and I have no purpose, I feel very annoyed with myself and with the world around me. I don't know what it is, but if I'm not doing something, if I'm not either meditating, or if I'm not creating something, or if I'm not enjoying something that's educating me, it's just a twist right now.
I think that's why people plan out so many activities to do throughout the course of their day, or those like really productive people that, like Elon Musk, that like schedules down to the minute. Like I've seen a video on his like morning routine and stuff. I mean, this guy has the time allotted to brush his teeth. It's like 47 seconds, and then it's like on the hairbrush. Like everything is like planned out through the course of the day. And yeah, I think it's part and parcel to that, where when they can't stay still and they need to have something to do through every portion of the day, that they make sure that they have that. And I think, you know what, in all honesty, it would probably be more growth in going in the opposite direction and spending more time meditating and getting more comfortable with the fact that nothing is going on. Because I'm the same. I get very, I have to have something going on. And I honestly think part of the marijuana use is that, because if there's nothing else going on, I'll just fucking smoke. And that'll be like the thing I'm doing now.
Yeah. It's not even when there's nothing else going on. Sometimes when there's something going on, I just want to put it to my lips and just take a toke.
Yeah, well, I love the fucking thing. I always have. And it's actually what I wanted to bring up earlier, because we're talking about drug use. We always talked about, like, the gateway drug aspect of it.
Yeah.
I've never experienced that. I'm sorry.
Right.
I've literally tried. I don't know who's watching this out of my family, but I've tried coke. I've tried ecstasy. I've tried, like, a bunch of shit. And mushrooms, obviously, like we talked about. And I'm not running back to my dealer the next day like, oh my god, I need more. Weed, more than anything, is where my addiction is.
That's the same with me. I've always been told, oh, it's a gateway drug, but honestly, I've had ecstasy and I've had MDMA, but the last time I had that, my kids are 9. My oldest is 9 now. He'll be 9 in August, and he was not born when I last had ecstasy or MDMA. So it's over 9 years at least since I've had that. And
I'm sure it's different for everybody, not to poo-poo anybody else's addictions, but
yeah. And other than a bit of alcohol now and then, I don't divulge in anything except for weed at all.
Same.
It's the only thing I touch. And it's not because I don't, want to touch anything else or not interested in anything else, because I am very interested in psychoactive drugs and stuff like that. But I'm not going to rush out and immediately try and find them and, try and take them for any reason. But
I wouldn't mind microdosing now that we're talking about everyday drug use. I would not mind trying an honest to God regimen of like a month of microdosing mushrooms and seeing how that works.
Yeah, I've never really been on tabs with anybody who's microdosed or found out, how it works for them. But everything's different for everybody else. So I'm not exactly sure how regimenting things would work for me specifically, because I've been on a couple of regimens for different types of drugs before, prescribed drugs, but they didn't work out too well. but none of them really ever do they? So it's a.
Yeah.
I think it all comes back to how you perceive it. Like, I mean, if you don't expect a medication to work on you, I don't think that it's going to work on you. If it's a microdose of some kind of drug that you want to take, I think that if you want it to work on you, then it's more likely to work on you. You're not necessarily going to have the best trip. You're not necessarily going to have a good trip, but it'll probably work on you. But I think if you're the type of person who doesn't expect it to have an effect on you or a good effect on you at all, then a lot of the time that kind of stuff won't have a good effect on you or an effect on you at all. Especially if it's like a chemical drug like the companies make, big companies.
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said about like psychosomatic drugs, right? Where, sorry, that's not the word. What's the word where you believe placebo? Something to be said about the placebo effect, right? It's
Right.
like the same as that in reverse. If you believe it's gonna work for you, it's gonna work for you.
Right.
Which I guess is where like faith healing and shit like that, if there is such a thing, it comes into play is the belief that it's gonna work for you or not. But yeah, so like microdosing is essentially not so much for any kind of actual trip. It's just supposed to give you a little peppy glow. Like
Hmm.
I'm ready to go finish the day.
Yeah.
As opposed to like any kind of real.
Well, I've heard
And that's
about.
the other thing I want to mention. And all my mushroom use has always been for party use. I never really took it as a tool to heal myself or to better myself. And I think I wouldn't mind trying it now that my mindset has changed from back then when I was a partier and all that. Now I'm a little
Yeah, and see, that's what
more
I'm
into.
talking about. Is that I think your mindset has to be in the right place, because I think if you approach a psychoactive drug with the intent of making yourself better, and you're in a depression and all you're thinking about all the time is, oh, blah, I hate this, then I don't think that that's the best place for you to be when you're taking a drug.
Right.
And by all means, I'm not telling anybody here to go out and take any kind of drug for any reason. But if you're out there and you feel, hey, I'm feeling good about myself right now, and I think that this would be a good tool to help me, then hey, I'm all for it. Especially if you feel that it's gonna make you feel better, and I feel like anything that's gonna make you feel like you're in a better place, if it makes you feel better about yourself, makes you feel better about how you're feeling or how you relate to a situation or anything, then it's worth exploring. At least, at the very least, it's worth the education and knowing exactly what it's going to do to you. I'm not, that's why I said, I'm not saying go out and do drugs, but that's why this content is labeled for mature audiences, folks. Anyway, I feel like it all swings back around to how we perceive the world and what's going on, and all the shit that's boiling in the pot. I feel like democracy is a big pile of shit, and I don't feel like it's the fault of the. I was going to say I don't feel like it's the fault of the people, but I'm completely wrong there. I feel like it is the fault of the people, but it's the wrong people that we're blaming. We're blaming politicians and stuff like that. We're pointing the fingers at Trump and them, but it's not Trump that's the one. He might have ran for president, but he didn't vote himself into office. We're pointing fingers here, but we should be pointing fingers at not ourselves because we're Canadian. But
My biggest problem with what's going on right now with politics in the world is the fact that it's the internet age. And I hate to like put it so like bluntly, but we talk about this a lot. For like every article you find, even we'll use Trump as the example. Trump did this really good thing. There's not another article that says that thing that Trump did was horrible.
right,
So like nobody knows where to stand on anything anymore. People think this coronavirus is fake. People think the hospital numbers are fake. Like nobody knows what to believe because We can
Yeah.
both jump on the internet right now
As an
and pull up
example,
facts.
I will say that I don't know, even though it's come from his personal Twitter account, his verified Twitter account, I don't know whether Kanye West is actually running for president or not. I don't know
I know
whether that's a joke or whether it's
I
true. And I know he wanted to, and I know he was all for Trump, and he was in the White House and everything. You know, I think it would be better than what we have. It's not me. Again, I'm Canadian, but hey, you know what? It affects the world. And if we have an artist as a president, I'm not going to argue.
he's a weird one because, well, first off, there's already a bunch of rumors that are flying around as to why he's doing this. He's a weird one in the fact that is he like really spun, or does he present himself of his image of this guy who always stays in the forefront of pop culture because of all the crazy shit that he does?
Right,
Like he was pretty much known as a Trump supporter a couple months back, had the MAGA hat on and everything.
right.
So now the theories are revolving around: is he doing this to draw attention away or votes away from Biden? So it makes it an easier transition for Trump to actually get into it.
Yeah,
How
because
many times before I tell you that there's a new album coming and this is all just marketing and he's a genius because he's teasing running for president to market a
yeah,
campaign for his
it's
new
going to
album.
be 2020. He's going to dress up as a president and put himself on the cover of it.
But
Hey, you
even
know
getting
what?
back to Trump real fast, Trump being a
Call it here.
politician, when I could understand Reagan was an actor, actors are orators, they have to speak in front of people.
Mm,
Trump was never that. Trump, to the best of my understanding, he did do public speaking, but I don't ever like remember hearing him be this great, like powerful orator. And I think it shows when he's handling himself in press conferences.
it does. It
Nothing being
really
really
does.
nice,
It,
really nice.
it definitely does show for sure. Um, so I want to bring this back to heroic doses. Do you feel like there was any what do you feel like influenced you the most when you were writing that? Like as far as your life goes. I mean, I know you said you were going through the depression and working and stuff, but was there anything else that was going on that you felt, man, I have to get this down to get it out of me?
Yeah, there was two other, I guess you call them big, big to me anyway. Sorry, there's a door right there slamming.
Okay.
I don't know if you're hearing it or not.
Yeah. It's all right.
Um, I did lose my mother in a car accident, and she was taken from us very brief, or like very suddenly, I should say. And like it's one of those like Shakespeare couldn't have written a friggin' tragedy any more like crazy. So
Mm.
to do it really, really fast, my mom died in a car accident on the way to her father's funeral
Oh fuck.
4 days after Christmas. It was December 28th. So they announced my mom's death at my grandfather's funeral. I was in a suit and tie taking the call from the hospital, like saying like, you guys got to go to the hospital. Never mind the funeral home. There's been an accident. So that was definitely something that was rattling around in my heart and in my subconscious. And again, not to be cliche, but like lost love. It's the typical story. I was working part time at a call center, and there was only like three people in the room, and one of the guys quit, and it was just me and this other girl that were like alone in this room. We spent a lot of hours with each other, and like that's it, and that's all. And ultimately, that did not go in a positive direction, and I was very hurt for a very long time regarding that situation. And there's definitely a lot of elements of that in heroic doses as well.
Yeah, I
There's
can hear those ones. I know a couple of them for instance that have stuck with me for a while. I didn't know whether it was worth mentioning that I used to manage Tank for a short while, what a year or so. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, you never really talked to me about that kind of stuff when we were doing that. But I can guess why. I'm very sorry for your loss. But
Never think about my mom at all. I'm usually pretty open about my mom.
yeah, I mean, I've seen some stuff on your Facebook about it, but you know, won't get too personal, even though we just
Yeah,
shared that. But you know, I feel like touching on most of those bases was a key in your development, though. I mean, you wouldn't be, you may not even still be writing music if you decided, you know, oh, I want to keep those feelings inside of me, you know? If you decided that, you know, that was something that you wanted to keep to yourself, you might not be where you are.
exactly. All the experiences in our life, positive or negative, make us who we are, right?
Right. I feel like it's a heavy effector, especially, you know, all of it relates back to, you know, not necessarily religion or not necessarily, you know, psychedelics, not necessarily art, but, you know, being as a, like, I don't know, I sound nerdy when I talk like this, or at least I think I sound nerdy. You know, I was listening to some Alan Watts a while ago, some lectures, and he was talking about the state of non-existence. And what struck me was you know, I've thought about before being alive. Obviously, you know, you don't really. Sometimes you stop and you think about being alive because you don't really think about it every day. You don't really think about being alive. But I've also thought about, you know, as people sometimes say, you know, when you go, you know, it goes on without you. What is that saying? With or without you, it'll keep carrying on, right? Everything goes on with or without you. So everything's the same. Nothing really changes. You can see that when somebody dies, you're at a funeral, you leave the funeral, you watch some guy walk into a coffee shop and he gets his coffee, he goes across the road, he gets his smokes. He comes out and he has a smoke. And you know, he'd do that whether your grandmother or your mother or your brother, you know, whether you just came from that funeral or not. And I feel like when I thought about that, it didn't hit me. But when I listened to this Alan Watts, you know, lecture, and he said, but you've already not existed once before. When you were born, before you were born, you didn't exist. And when I thought about, holy shit, there's a point in time where I didn't exist already. Like, you know, I thought about, you know, not existing in the future. But to believe that you already hadn't existed at one point in time means that it almost feels like that it has to be a whole. Because, like Mikey brought this up, you know, the stuff that makes up what I am physically has always existed. The molecular atoms that exist, the particles, you know, they've always existed.
Yeah, the
But
energy never leaves, they say.
right, it's just broken down and then restructured as something else. So, you know, they say time is cyclical. I don't feel that it's exactly time that's cyclical or necessarily, but more like life is cyclical, you know? If you feel like life has any kind of structure to it, it's got to be a sphere because it can go around in any direction and it can take a turn at any given time.
Actually,
So
probably a spiral is probably more accurate.
a spiral is more accurate, you think? I mean, I guess the rotation of planets, you know, if you think
Fibonacci
about it that
sequence,
way.
baby.
Yeah,
You know about the Fibonacci sequence, yes?
yeah, the Fibonacci sequence of numbers. They go all the way down.
It's like
Spiral.
any manifestation of it in actual in life. Almost always shows up as some kind of spiral,
Mm.
including black hole.
That's true too. Yeah, and I mean, inevitably as it is, the you know orbits of planets as the sun gets larger, it'll suck them in closer. So all of them are technically creating a spiral as they are, spinning around the sun. They just
There
increase
you
the gravitational pull of the sun, and they'll all eventually start moving inward a little bit. So it's always occurring in a spiral. Anyway, Tank, I appreciate you appearing on my show.
No problem.
Thank you
We
for
gotta talk about
entertaining me.
songwriting next time.
Oh, we didn't talk about songwriting. We're coming up on an hour. You know what? We got 5 minutes. Go ahead. I just
Okay,
I
so
gotta keep it so that I can upload it. Go ahead.
this is really all I wanted to say about it. And it's probably going to open itself up for a longer discussion. We're probably going to have to do part two. So I am the type
It's
of
fine with me.
writer. I don't think I write anything, and I know that sounds like really ridiculous to say, but I've heard interviews with like Jeff Buckley, who's like somebody who I absolutely adore as a musician, where he's like, sometimes I pick up the guitar and it's like my hands have to do something,
Hmm.
and something just kind of comes out of it. Like how I was saying, like I'm not trained in any instrument. So I'd sit down in front of a keyboard and I'd literally not know what I'm gonna write. So I would like start with just like a riff because I don't know, I hit some notes and it sounded kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I, from being in bands and knowing how sound structure works, and I'm like, okay, so now I know I need a bass line. I know what a bass line should do. Let me figure out the notes and like figure out the notes.
Hmm.
So I read a book that was actually on the writer's block. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's one of my favorite books of all time. And it talks about how there's two kinds of writers. There's the architect and there's the gardener. So the architect has his plan from the beginning. He knows it's going to be, this is my structure. I go chorus heavy, chorus first. Then I go into a verse, second chorus, I'll have a bridge, and I'll have my outro. That's basically my layout for all my sounds.
Hmm.
But a gardener is concerned with writing that first line. And then the second line, and then the third line, and something develops through the course of writing that.
Yeah.
So that's how I wrote Herodosis, musically and lyrically. So I didn't know I was going to write a song about being alone when I wrote The Lonely Ones. So sometimes I would like listen to it back, like where the fuck did this song come from? Like, sometimes it does not feel like it's from me, like there's something working through me.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in the muse, and I'm a big believer in not rewriting. And this is where every other songwriter will look at me like I'm fucking crazy, because everybody rewrites and I hardly ever rewrite. And that's for the simple fact that I am a strong believer in my muse and what I'm writing at that moment. And
Right.
I'm not going to fucking guess it. That is a big idea crammed into a very small nutshell for the sake of time.
Yeah. Well, I know when I write anything, I feel like I definitely don't want to compress or remove too much because I feel like, oh, if this sounds good to me, then it's going to sound good to somebody else at some point in time. And it can't not sound good to somebody.
So that brings up another interesting point. There's a rapper that I really like. His name is Kyle. And I was listening to an interview he's doing with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Vaynerchuk is a very inspirational Tim Robbins kind of guy, but more on the entrepreneurial side of things, where he helps people with businesses and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're discussing, and he's like, what do you do when you sit down and you write a song? Like, what's your goal? So Kyle said, same thing I would say, trying to write the best song possible. Like, what else are you going to do when you write a song? What else are you going to do, moron?
What else?
Gary Vaynerchuk, he looks at me, he goes, bullshit. There is no best song possible. What Vayner likes, Paul's not going to like. What Paul's like, Gary's not going to like. What Gary likes, fucking Kyle's not going to like.
Right.
So there's no point in trying to achieve this, like, crazy standard when it's more important to have your name and face in up front and in their visual perspective, so they never forget who Tank Diggs is.
Right. That was a very, I mean, oh wait, yeah, losing my words. I was going to say bold, and then I was like, it wasn't bold. It wasn't bold. It was profound, kind of. Then my words didn't come out. Anyway.
You can't please everybody all the time, right?
Right. Especially with the English dictionary.
But we want to as songwriters.
Exactly.
As songwriters, we want everybody to fucking like our shit. I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
Like, you don't because you write for yourself, which I do, but
Yeah.
I want everybody to make their shit. I'm not gonna lie.
I write for myself as well. I don't like. I mean, I think is somebody gonna like this? And then I say, well, somebody's got to like it if I like it, and that's the point. You got to like it. If you don't like it, if you don't write for yourself, you don't like it.
They will see your love in your product,
Right.
and they will love the fact that you love what you're doing,
Exactly.
even if they don't love it.
Okay, Tank. Thank you for entertaining me with your presence.
Hold on, quick plug.
Sure.
ilovetank.bandcamp.com.
I was gonna
You
have
can
you
get
plug that.
Heroic Ghost there. You can get Phantom Claws there. You can get the High Priest EP there. Keep your ear to the ground for One Trick Pony. I'm coming. I'm taking shots at the king. I'm not gonna fucking miss.
All right, Tank. Thank you.